guys! We are going to continue in Blood on the River, hopefully finishing this book. This is chapter 27 on page 215 and the Afterward section, which goes all the way up to page 224. Snow falls fine as sugar, but inside our cabin it is toasty warm. I'm about to get scolded, as usual. Samuel, what are you doing? Anne stands with her hands on her hips. I'm hiding, I say simply. Watch, she likes it when I pop my head out. I drop the handkerchief, and Virginia erupts with giggles. Anne shakes her head, but she is smiling. I hide again. Virginia crawls to me, grabs the handkerchief, and pulls it away. She is so pleased with herself. She laughs and claps her hands. Samuel, stop your playing and come help me, Anne says. She needs more firewood. I do not hesitate, but jumped up to do as she bids. I owe my life to her. After she heard what happened to Captain Ratcliffe, Anne begged Captain Davies to retract my sentence. I don't know if I'd have survived the 20 lashes that were to be my punishment. Anne testified that I had done the right thing to convince her to be with her husband at Point Comfort. John, too, spoke up for me. He said I had meant well by taking Virginia with me, and that he could not afford to lose his best apprentice. I owe my life to both of them. I step outside, leaving the warmth of our cabin. The air is crisp and sharp and smells of wood smoke. Snow swirls, coating the tree branches and giving everything a hushed feel. I am wearing my moccasins, and so I walk lightly through the snow, quiet as Kinta taught me to be. I smile when I think of Kinta. When the river thaws, I will paddle across to visit him in the Warawarsiak village and trade for corn. In the meantime, the Kiakatans are very close by, and my blue beads have kept us well supplied with corn from them. I go to the lean-to that protects our firewood from rain and snow, and stack the heavy pieces of wood in my arms. I feel strong. I am strong. I look around at the cabins that house our Fort Algernon soldiers. I helped to build every one of them. Snow blows into my face and stings my cheeks, but I am warm. An image flashes in my mind of another wintry day, what seems like a lifetime ago, of me and Richard blowing on embers in a cold cabin, trying to coax up a fire. I feel a pang of missing him, and of missing Captain Smith, too, and Reverend Hunt. Then my mind goes back further still, to a small fire in a friendly hearth, and my mum bent over a pot, stirring. I'm doing all right, Mom. I send the words up to heaven. I'm living with a family, with people I love, and we have food and fire. The wind is blowing from the northwest, from Jamestown. I wonder if I can smell the smoke of their wood fires more than 30 miles away, or if it is only our fort's fires I'm smelling. The river has been frozen for many weeks now, and we have not heard from them. Are they as warm and fed as we are, I wonder? A sudden chill makes me shiver. I feel it like a splash of cold water, the only sense of doom and dread, the fear that made me desperate enough to snatch baby Virginia away. I shake it off quickly. No sense worrying about Jamestown now. I have my duties here, and we are safe here. Safe. The word settles on me like peace. Anne, John, and Virginia are here with me, and we are safe. I load my arms with a few more pieces of wood, then turn and walk back through the snow to our cabin. Now the Afterward section on page 219. During the winter of 1609 to 1610, the settlers at Point Comfort did not go hungry. They had enough extra fish and crabs that even their hogs were well fed. As winter set in, ice formed on the river, and travel between Jamestown and Point Comfort became impossible. It was not until spring that those at Point Comfort found out about the horror that befell Jamestown that winter. Chief Powhatan ordered his tribes to stop trading with the settlers at Jamestown. The natives also went to Hog Island, which the settlers had stocked with hundreds of hogs, and slaughtered them all. Then they went back to killing any settler they found inside the fort. Settlers were afraid to hunt and fish, and so they remained inside the palisades. When the stores ran out, they'd eaten the last of their sheep and goats. They ate even the laying hens. And things got worse. They ate their horses, dogs, cats, rats, or any snake they could catch. When there was nothing left to kill, they even ate their starched collars, their leather shoes, anything that could be chewed and swallowed. Men, women, and children starved and died. Hunger caused desperation. Some of the colonists began to dig up the dead bodies and eat them. One group of men escaped that terrible winter by using violence to secure a large quantity of food from one of the native tribes, then stealing one of the ships and sailing back to England. The remaining settlers were ravaged by disease and starvation and warfare with the Indians. Out of the roughly 500 settlers Captain Smith said were in Jamestown when he left, by spring only 60 settlers remained, all of them close to death. The winter of 1906 to 1910 became known as the Starving Time. Chief Powhatan had tried again to wipe out the tribe that came from the Chesapeake, and he had nearly succeeded. In the spring of 1610, the man who was to be Jamestown's new governor, Sir Thomas Gates, finally arrived. He had been shipwrecked on Bermuda for 9 months until new ships could be sent and built from the remains of the Sea Venture. When Gates saw the desperate conditions in Jamestown, he decided to abandon the settlement and take the remaining survivors back to England. But as they sailed down the river, heading home, they were met by a messenger carrying a letter. It said that Sir Thomas West, Lord de Var, the new Lord Governor and Captain General of Jamestown, was on his way up the river to Jamestown with 3 ships, over 150 new colonists, and food for a year. The message was clear: go back to Jamestown. Reluctantly, the settlers returned to try again. The next several years were difficult. Jamestown's new leader took revenge on the natives, even the Keokatans and the Warawarsiaks, who had helped the settlers so much. They slaughtered native men, women, and children from many tribes. Revenge bred revenge, and there were raids and killings on both sides. In 1613, Pocahontas was kidnapped by the settlers and held hostage. In return for her freedom, they demanded that her father free the English prisoners he was holding, giving back stolen English weapons and tools, and send a large quantity of corn. Chief Powhatan gave the settlers some of what they asked for, saying he would send the rest when his daughter was returned. The English said this was not enough. Chief Powhatan refused to give in to the hostages' demands, and Pocahontas remained a prisoner. John Rolfe, a new colonist, began growing tobacco in Jamestown. Tobacco grew well in Virginia and sold well in England, and finally there was hope that the colony would make a profit for the Virginia Company of London. While she was held prisoner, Pocahontas met John Rolfe. The two were married in 1614 with Chief Powhatan's blessing. This began a period of time some historians call the Peace of Pocahontas. For a while, there was not as much bloodshed between the English and the natives, and the two groups shared the land together. Pocahontas, her husband John Rolfe, and their son Thomas were taken to England by Sir Thomas Dale to promote the Jamestown colony and help Dale get financial assistance. There she became ill and died in 1617. She was buried at St. George's Parish Church in Gravesend, England. In 1619, the first Africans arrived in the Virginia colony on a privateer ship. It is not clear whether they were slaves or indentured servants, which means they would have to work for a number of years, then would be free. But soon, especially with so much labor needed for the tobacco fields, the Africans were brought to Virginia and sold as slaves for life. Was Reverend Hunt's prediction right? Did Samuel become something much greater than a servant? Yes. In 1619, the Virginia Company of London created the House of Burgesses in Virginia. By the time there were 11 settlements, and each settlement had its own leadership. Samuel Collier, by then a grown man, was recognized for his knowledge, skills, and ability to communicate with the natives in their own language. Captain Smith wrote that Samuel was appointed leader of a town. Captain John Smith was never able to return to Jamestown, but his writings are one of our most valuable records of what went on in the colony. Did the Powhatan prophecy ever reach its conclusion? In 1622, though Chief Powhatan had died, his empire was still strong, led by his brother. There were still many more natives than Europeans living in Virginia, but more settlers arrived on ships from England every couple months, and they were taking over more and more of the land the Indians used for hunting and planting. The new chief decided to wipe out the English once and for all. He carefully planned his attack. On March 22, 1622, 347 colonists were killed, about 1/3 of the Virginia European population. The settlers began raiding the Indian villages, killing and burning, with the goal of exterminating the native people. War between the natives and the Europeans continued for years. The new chief did mount one more large attack on the settlers in 1644, but by then the European population had grown, and the Indian population had been decimated. The new chief was captured and killed, and the Powhatan Empire crumbled. Just as the prophecy had predicted, the Powhatan Empire was destroyed by a new tribe that arrived from the Chesapeake Bay. During the first 100 years after the English arrived in 1607, over 90% of Virginia's native population was killed either in warfare and massacres or by the new diseases the Europeans brought with them. As Europeans took over more and more of their land, the natives were forced onto reservations, and then over time, most of their reservation land was taken from them. There is, however, land in the Virginia countryside that, for thousands of years, has been home to the native people who still live there. And that's the end. I hope you guys enjoyed reading Blood on the River, and if you're following along, that's the end of the book.